discussion, respect, integrity, truth, science, and discovery. Welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. Hello and welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. I am your friendly neighborhood ghost hunter, Justin Brown, and welcome to another episode. And today we get to cause all kinds of discussion, we're going to say, about one of the most highly used scientific, with quotation marks, tools that there is in paranormal research right now. So what that would be an EMF detector, EMF meter, however you would like to say it. But before we get into the subject, I want to bring over Jessica Bias. Say hello to Jessica. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. A little tired. Softball practice ran me late. That's why I'm starting at 9:30.
Right.
Jumped to the shower, cleaned off, set up the live stream, and now we get to talk about ghosts. So, Jessica,
great, let's do it.
That's right. Jessica will be monitoring the show for me tonight for any questions. And if you don't have any questions, she will be shouting out people that are in the comments, chatting it up. So don't be shy. Ask me questions. Give me your opinion on anything I say. Start conversation, whatever you would like to do. I'll refer back to Jessica and we'll start going through that stuff. But until then, I will start blabbing on and start talking about EMF detectors. So I'll get back to you, Jess.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's see if I can fix my chat. I know Streamlabs isn't working at all, and I don't see it working, so I'm just going to have to figure that out later. All right, guys. Before I get into the show, I am going to do the little disclaimer that I normally do if this is the first time you're watching. But by no means am I telling you that I'm an expert in the paranormal field. You know, I don't know everything, but I try to educate myself, and I try to really relay that education to people who follow me, people who are interested. I really like to do that. So if you disagree with me, that's fine. That's great. You know, just say, you could say so in the comments and tell me why, or you don't have to say anything. But I urge you to try to have an open mind and try to be open to what I have to say and understand where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be better than anybody else out there. What I'm trying to do genuinely is educate myself, help educate others who would be interested in learning about, you know, topics on this show. And by doing that, I want to push paranormal research in the right direction. I want to strengthen the paranormal community. I want to propel it into into the future where it grows and just advances. Okay, there's a lot of disinformation, a lot of misleading things in paranormal pop culture, and one of the hugest things probably is the EMF detector, and especially certain types of EMF detectors. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is start with what EMF is, okay, and why do people, let me mute that, sorry. The EMF detector detects electromagnetic fields. So why do paranormal researchers and investigators believe that EMF have anything to do with ghosts, spirits, or the paranormal? Well, it's a theory. No one really knows what a ghost is made up of. No one really knows what kind of energy a ghost gives off or a spirit gives off. But there is a theory, and the theory is that spirits give off an electrical charge. Okay, a lot of people report feeling it on their skin, on their body. Some people are sensitive to it. Some people don't feel anything. Okay, so based on that theory, if the energy is electrically charged, negative or positive, it doesn't matter. When it moves, it causes magnetic field spikes and magnetic fields to occur. Okay, if it's stationary and does not move at all, you won't know that it's there with an EMF detector, okay? But if it moves, it'll cause an EMF detector to spike, okay? So that is the theory behind why paranormal researchers use EMF detectors, okay? So there is a lot of misleading information out there, and a lot of people just don't understand everything there is to know about EMF detectors. I don't know everything, but I know quite a bit. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what I know, and if you know something that I have not brought up, please bring it up, because this is what this show is about. We want people to learn everything they possibly can learn. I want to learn from you guys, so let's get into this, okay? When the theory became largely popular, okay, it was before there was EMF detectors. A lot of people believed that, the energy that it was giving off, around the turn of the 20th century, there was a lot of advancements in physics and science. And so a lot of people who were interested in doing real paranormal research, they believed that whenever there was paranormal phenomena occurring, or if there was a ghost present, that they felt an electric charge, or they observed an electric charge. Or some people may even speculated that, some type of electricity was occurring around the phenomena that they were trying to study. So if that's true, an EMF detector should pick it up in theory, okay? And there's a lot of different types, okay? We'll get into them, all right? I think the first one I'll bring up is probably the K2 meter, right? It's probably the most common one out there, because it's super sensitive. Now, there's cheaper ones out there, but the K2 meter is super sensitive, all right? When it was first manufactured, it was not doing well. The company that made them that was not doing really, really well, okay? And I'm not sure about this, but I think Gary Galka started taking the original K2 meter design and making his own, okay? And if I'm wrong about that, let me know, but I think I've read somewhere that Gary Galka started making his own K2 meters, but I'm not sure, okay? I know he makes the Mel meter, and then we'll get into that later. But first thing we want to talk about is, why is the K2 so popular? Well, it goes off a lot. It's very sensitive. And the first thing you want to learn about EMF detectors is some of them are designed to pick up a huge range in the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? Some of them pick up very specific ranges. They're narrower, some are larger. But the K2 meter, for educational purposes, picks up from 50 hertz all the way to 200 or 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz, okay? And that's huge, all right? When we start getting into the high frequencies, we're picking up, signals from mobile phones, wireless technology like the the keyless entries to cars. We're picking up cell phones, like I said, wireless phones in your home. Anything virtually wireless you can pick up. Remote control cars, okay, walkie-talkies. So the electrical circuits in your house are around 50 to 60 hertz depending on what country you're in, okay? So if you're in the US, it's 60. If you're overseas, it's 50. So your electrical circuits are around there. And then when you start getting into very low frequencies and extremely low frequencies, we're falling below 50 hertz. Okay, we're going into the sub frequencies that are very, very low. Most of the time there's ambient ELF and VLF everywhere, but they're very, very small. They're rarely above 0.1 milligauss. Okay, and we'll go into milligauss. The very first unit I believe that magnetic fields was used was Tesla units, and then it changed from Tesla units into Gauss. And there's different scales of Gauss. There's milligauss, Gauss, so on and so forth. All right, so no one knows what frequency this alleged magnetic field is occurring in. So you may want to start with a meter that picks up a large spectrum, but there's a problem, and hence the show I have going on right now. So what we need to address first and foremost is that anytime you use an instrument, you need to understand what it's doing, okay? You need to understand that everything in your environment at this point in time is giving, almost everything anyways, giving off some type of magnetic field. Our bodies give off very, very low magnetic fields. Anything that's got an electrical charge. Okay, so if you look around you, you could probably count dozens of things that are giving electrical charges off, and they're moving around in our, in our space all the time. There's stuff being shot in the air, radio frequencies, you name it. Even stuff coming from distant galaxies and stars. Okay, it's everywhere, but at varying degrees of intensity. So we have to take in all this in account. Okay, and the hugest problem a lot of paranormal researchers make when they're starting off using this device is they're not aware what they're picking up when they see the lights go off, and everybody knows, someone sees blinky lights on a gadget, they get all excited. It's blinking. Why is that blinking? It must be a ghost. Well, no, you don't know. Okay. The reason we don't know is we don't know what ghosts are made up of. We don't know if ghosts exist. We don't know. Okay. It's all theory. So you have to understand that before you can start researching the paranormal, you got to stop thinking that you can detect a ghost. Okay. What you need to do is to find out if it's anomalous or not on that device. Okay. So if you can have a somewhat of control of your environment, turning your phone off, going into an area, where there's not a bombardment of magnetic fields present. Okay. Try to do that as much as possible. Now, it's almost impossible to do since, it's being shot through the air everywhere all the time. It's even coming from space. It's pretty much impossible to control it unless you put yourself in a Faraday cage. And we can go in that if you go into Faraday cages if you want, or shielding. But since it's virtually impossible to do that without a Faraday cage, you have to consider that there could be some contamination or false positives with EMF detectors, especially if they have large spectrum. Okay. Another thing, before we go into different spectrums and readouts of the meters, we'll talk about the sensors. Okay. The K2, for example, it has one sensor. Okay. It faces up and down. Like if you're holding the meter in your hand like this, the sensor's facing up and the sensor's facing down. Okay. So anything that is electrically charged that moves on top of it or below it is going to set off the meter if it's strong enough, if it's within, a half a milligauss or so. So different meters have different sensors. Some of them have 2 sensors, some of them have 3 sensors, some of them even more if they're custom, or, there might be some out there I haven't seen that have more than 3, but the most common is 1 sensor or 3. You have tri-field, meters, or tri-axis sensors, and then you have just 1. Okay. And what's nice about tri-axis sensors is you can start to realize where the magnetic field is moving based on the 3 axes. Okay. So that's better data for your research, but you need to know where all the sensor reading and pickups are when you're using the device, so you can make those calculations and get that data accurately. So probably one of the more common ones and the safer ones to use are Mel meters. Okay. Mel meters have a more narrower spectrum that they actually detect when it comes to magnetic fields. It's 30 to 300 hertz. And Gary Golka specifically did that so he can eliminate all the higher, fields out there. Okay. So if you want, it's safer to use, but if something anomalous goes beyond that spectrum and happens, you won't know about it. So there's pros and cons. Okay. So before we get into more discussion about it, I'm going to assume that people's commenting will bring Jessica back into the conversation. Is there any questions yet?
Yes, there has been one, but we will skip Derek's question. But Jamie's on, Missy's on, Derek's obviously on, Josh is on, Diana's on, Sam Thomas is on, and there was a few other people. I'm sorry that I missed you. For some reason, it's not letting me scroll up.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it won't let me.
Well, if we missed you, I'm sorry. Comment
Yes.
again. Comment again so she sees you.
Yeah, it won't let me scroll up.
By the way, share this show for us if you'd like. I'm trying to get through and share it to more people. But what
Okay,
question do we have?
Missy asked, how much EMF does a Jacob's ladder let off?
Good question. It depends on what type of Jacob's ladder, and it doesn't give off a steady particular amount. The amount is high though. Okay, we're talking about we're probably exceeding 100 milligauss. Okay, it could be in the hundreds. So it's super high, super duper high. It's probably equivalent to some like main line coming out of the pole straight into your house type energy. That's a safe assumption.
Brad Streets is also here. I think I said Zach. Zach Bender is here.
What's up, Zach? Is Zach interested in the paranormal at all? Do you know, Jess?
I think he used to. But don't quote me. I don't know. I shouldn't speak for him.
Y'all are dumb, he says. Sure. You're all crazy.
No.
He just wants to make fun of you. That's why he's here.
It probably wouldn't be the first time.
All right, so that's the only question we got so far, right?
Yes, that I see so far.
Okay, fair enough. I'll get back to you guys. Please keep commenting, asking questions, anything you'd like, and I'll get back to Jess and we'll go through them. All right. So, should we use EMF detectors? Sure, why not? It's definitely plausible that paranormal phenomena, has something to do with electrically charged energy, like electrons, for example. It could be anything. It could be ionized atoms and molecules. It could be anything, okay? But do EMF detectors detect ghosts? The answer to that is we don't know. So you can't assume that it does at any point in time unless you have extraordinary data that says so, okay? And it's got to hold up pretty good to any kind of type of scientific peer review, okay? So we need to know how they work. We need to know what they do and how they do it and how they should be used. Okay, my opinion on how they should be used is you want to jot down anything that you can't explain. But if you can't explain it, doesn't mean it's paranormal. Anything you can't explain doesn't automatically have to be paranormal. It's just unknown, all right? And what we're trying to do is take out the unknown to the paranormal, okay? Just try to remove it. Since it's unknown, we want to try to discover what we can know about it using science properly, all right? So you're in a haunted location, or if you're in your house and you're doing some type of research and you have an EMF detector there, okay, great. If something happens, let's say you hear a voice, okay? If you hear a voice that's disembodied, you have no reason why you should be hearing a voice, and the EMF detector doesn't go off, that's data. Okay, you write that down, you log that, however you log the data, you store it somewhere so you can refer back to it in your research. If you hear a voice and it goes off, that's data, okay? Now, is the detector near the voice? Is it far away from the voice? All those details is important too, okay? So you want to take in all that consideration and all those details and log it, okay? If something moves on its own, unknown, unexplained, you want to see what the EMF detector does in that event, okay? We're not just solely looking at magnetic field spikes. We're looking at other phenomena that happens when the field spikes occur. Now, one good example is what we do is Paul Browning had come up with an EVP recorder that utilizes a MagCheck 95, which is essentially a magnetic field sensor, and it will detect and sense a magnetic field, and you can use it to listen to the field while you're doing your EVP research. So you just run it into your RVPR setup, and if you get an EVP and you get a magnetic field spike with that EVP, that's good data that you can say, okay, there's some type of magnetic field spike occurring that I have no, known source of, and we have an anomalous voice phenomena over here happening at the same time. So that type of research is good. Are we, associating the field with the phenomena? Well, it could be coincidence. Okay, so we got to replicate those results. Okay, we want to see every time we get an EVP, we want to see the magnetic field spike right when we get it. So if you get EVP sometimes with this field spike and sometimes not, there's something that we need to do further research on. We have to go back to the drawing board. We have to look through our experiment, make sure we're setting it up right, make sure we do the proper adjustments, think things through. Always have peer review with people you respect and people who are knowledgeable about the subject matter. Okay, don't rely on just skeptics alone, because just because you're skeptical does not mean that you know anything about the science you're applying to your research. So what I have done is I reach out to people who may not even believe in ghosts. They don't believe in the paranormal at all, but they're freaking whizzes with science. Okay, so I reach out to them. I'll be like, okay, I got this, I got that, this is what I got. I show them to it. What do you think? Even if it's just reaching out to them on the phone or through a message or through an email. Have a community, 1, 2, 5, 6, a dozen or more people that you can reach out to. Let them review it and give you feedback. Okay, because once you start establishing that type of community and that type of peer review, your research is going to be good. You're going to be doing it right. Okay, if you just record a magnetic field spike, put it on a video and throw it out there and look and see I got a ghost, that's not peer review. And that drives the scientific community and the skeptic community insane when you do that. Okay, so if you do that, just display it, publish it, and just say, I don't know, what do you think? Because your video could be a form of peer review. Okay, so you can just publish it and present it like, okay, this happened, I don't know, what do you think? And that's what I do. Okay, I've put my stuff out there and it's up for however you want to perceive it. I don't claim to know if it's paranormal at all. Okay, at best it's just unexplained. So when you're using the EMF detector, let's reiterate here. Make sure there is nothing around within the detectable spectrum of your EMF detector that's going to set the thing off. Walkie-talkies, cell phones, radios, electrical circuits in the houses, appliances, anything that has electricity in it, it's got to be away, okay? And you have to understand the range in which your EMF detector or meter can detect such things. And you have to understand that the things that are giving off the EMF could spike and have varying degrees of emission, magnetic fields, in varying degrees. So just because you think you're 5 feet away from it and you're fine, there may be something happen. Your fridge compressor may kick on and spike your meter from 5 feet away when it wasn't doing it before, for example. So all these things have got to be taken into consideration. You got to be very, very, very careful when you're using these tools. Okay, they were not meant for ghost hunting, but they can be applied if done correctly. Okay, and I want to stress the sensor and the range in which your meter can detect magnetic fields has to be correlated with something else happening. Okay, just a spike alone is very, very minimal at best. It's really nothing. Okay, now if you see an apparition and you feel tinglies on your arm and you're holding a detector and it's going off while you're seeing it manifesting, that's cool. Okay, you want to log that, write down all the details of the manifestation, all the experiences. If there's somebody with you, have them write out a detailed log of everything they experience, and then you just put that down. Now, does that mean ghosts give off magnetic fields? No, it doesn't. It could be a coincidence. What we have to do is do the research properly and make sure through replication and through correct data logging, okay? Because this is very, very important. A lot of people, and I have been guilty of this too, use the EMF detector wrongly, okay? So that's a huge problem, but I think we can do better. Jessica, any comments?
Zach replied he was in Josh's group when he lived in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so Pam Bender's on.
Uh-oh, we have the whole Bender family.
I know.
You better be good, Jess.
I know, right? Derek says, why do you think that EMF meters are so expensive?
Well, some of them, the components are costly to manufacture. Some of the sensors are very sensitive and require a lot of calibration, and just because it's hard to manufacture. Now, that brings up an interesting question I haven't got into yet. The calibration of your meter is important too. Just because it spikes and it tells you that it's 10 milligauss does not mean that it's 10 milligauss. The calibration is very important too. Okay, so if you don't routinely calibrate your meters and test them to make sure that they're accurate, that could be a problem. And more expensive ones are more accurate, and the more cheaper ones are less accurate. The K2 meter is probably one of the least accurate meters that there is out there. I mean, we're relying on a sticker that says so and so milligauss on it with a light blinking next to it. That is horrible. That's garbage. Okay, so you would never use a K2 meter to do super duper scientific research on the exact measurement of the field. At best, you're just detecting a field in general. Okay, and that's all you can really do with the K2 millimeters. They need to be calibrated and they need to be used carefully. Okay, because when you're hand holding them, that could cause a lot of problems. But the main reason, to answer Derek's question, and I think what he's getting at, is there is an industry that's driven by, the rise of paranormal research and pulp culture. Okay, so they can take a $5-10 meter and charge $50 for it because of the demand, because of the popularity of it. So if they see a particular device on TV and that TV gets good ratings and everybody likes that show, that's just a way to market something and drive up the price. So that's one thing that we need to consider too. Any more questions?
Sam Thomas had a question about the. She said the tower next door, which Paul answered, said cell phone towers will set them off. He already ran into that issue with cell towers. Sam also said, is that why people use old AM/FM radios?
No, radios do emit magnetic fields. A radio frequency is, essentially electromagnetic energy. So AM, the difference between AM and FM is how the carrier wave is modulated. Okay, AM stands for amplitude modulation. So just to give you a little bit of insight here, we'll go type this in. Amplitude modulation. And we'll bring up some images here and we'll go to our graphic screen, which is here. Uh-oh. We need to get our... That's the wrong one. So let me go back to guest screen here and figure this one out. I don't know why I did that. Graphic screen. No. Trying to find a display capture here. Let me set this right. Why isn't this working? All right, well, let me remove this and I'll let you know what AM and FM is. So let's go to display capture. Okay. And nope, and there we go. Okay. So we're going to move this under my webcam here. All right. So, amplitude modulation. You see the amplitude is how big the frequency goes up, from this line in the center here. That's amplitude. The more amps it has, the more modulation it gets. So back in the day, we used this, I'm not going to get all into the carrier waves and how it's modulated, but the AM makes the carrier wave, the amplitude of the carrier wave bigger, okay? And FM changes the frequency. FM stands for frequency modulation. So when you're looking at frequency modulation, the top one indicates that the frequency is slower or less, and the one in the middle is faster. It's more frequency. So the reason that they did this in the beginning is that AM modulation was very susceptible like to storms and interference, and you would get that staticky stuff that happened during storms or when if you're near power lines, for example. So they developed FM modulation so it's cleaner and clear sounding. So that's why they developed FM after they came out with AM. It really don't have anything to do with EMF detectors. Anything else, Jess?
Yes, Zach said we use the K2 for asking questions. Ask a question and have the possible spirit come close to answer a yes or a no question, for example. Then ask the same question to see if it lights up again. Do you hold any value to that, or is that not practiced anymore?
Yes, it's practiced all the time. Okay, and before I see Paul Browning's comments, and we definitely want to get to Paul Browning's comments because I spoke to him on the phone the other week about this. And when we ask for it to spike to answer questions, the main problem I have with that is it's going to spike. If you're getting spikes, you need to have a really good baseline. So if you do an EMF sweep of the house and you work out your grid and make sure that everywhere in the house that gives off spikes when you do a baseline sweep, okay, you do that. Now you need to sit the K2 meter down and let it sit there for 24 hours is a good amount of time. See if it gets any spikes just from it sitting there without introducing any known source of EMF that it can detect. If it does not go off within that 24 hours, then you know that you're pretty safe to say that it's baselined. So if you get any spike after that point in time, it could be considered anomalous. Could be, maybe, okay? But if it's going off and you're asking questions at that point, then you need to consider it as a coincidence. So you need to really be smart about how you continue, okay? So if it looks like it's just going off randomly, and sometimes it goes off when you ask a question, you should do this, okay? For yes, you do this. For no, you do this, and you want a response every time. So if you're doing it that way, that could be okay. But you got to make sure that you're being very rigorous on how you're getting something to, spike it intelligently, if that makes sense to you, Zach. But that way is not you shouldn't use it in that way unless that's the only way that it wants to manifest as some type of magnetic field. Okay, so you want to be very careful on how you do it. You want to do a sweep in a grid light pattern. You want to get like a notebook and jot down what type of magnetic fields are present and everywhere in the field of research that you're researching, and then you want to baseline it. So if you want to pick a spot where you're going to do the experiment, make sure that it does not spike just randomly for a while, because like I said, something could come along and just hit it from somewhere that you can't see. So it's important. Keep on going, Jess.
Paul Browning said, does anyone know the range of EMF that their meter detects?
Before he came on, we did talk about a few. Now, the K2 has a range from 50 hertz to 20,000 hertz. The millimeter is 30 to 300 hertz. The tri-field, I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Paul does. If Paul knows the range of the tri-field meter, he can put it down in the comments. But we did talk about that, and a lot of people just don't know what the range is. So that's a very good thing to bring up. I know that Paul Welch had some comments. Did he have anything interesting to say or any questions? I know you said you can find some cheap K2s.
Yeah, off of eBay. Cell phone towers. If you're using the EMF meters, it's always best to get a baseline reading in the area to see if there's an established EMF source in play already.
Right. We just talked about that. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
important.
Derek says, what about REM hits without an EMF reading?
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, a REM pod can detect magnetic field spikes and magnetic fields present, So if you get a hit without a spike, what that means is something electrically conductive disturbed the capacitance or the electric field that the REM pod is generating. Okay, so for example, I can wave my hand in front of a K2 meter or a Mel meter or any magnetic field detector, and it's not going to pick my hand up, even though I have a very small amount of magnetic fields generated from my body. It's not going to pick it up. Okay, unless you have some super duper sensor, but it will set off the REM pod. Okay, so that's an example of something that could set it off. Anything that will change the charge in the field is going to set off that REM pod, and that does not set off magnetic field detectors. It works differently. Yeah, Paul, not all. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, he says not all EMF meters detect the same range of EMF. That is correct. And another thing you want to talk about is there is DC and AC electrical current, okay? But the magnetic field detectors will pick up both. I know there's a lot of information out there where people think that field EMF detectors won't pick up certain types of fields. I know the tri-field, it has certain settings on it will differentiate from electric fields and DC fields and just regular magnetic fields. So that's a cool way to do research. But like a K2 will pick up DC and AC fields. It'll pick up both. But Paul says, I have seen light switches set off REM pods. My guess, some kind of electric charge in the hallways when I use the light switch. Yeah, if it's kicking on a circuit, it could disturb the field. It's possible. Anything else that we're not seeing that you saw, Jess?
I don't see anything else. Oh, Paul just said, why did he get a hit on his detector, but I didn't? Answer, different meters measure different ranges.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that could happen. So if you're trying to do an experiment with 2 meters, make sure they have the same range, preferably the same exact meter calibrated the same exact way. Because even if you have 2 different meters, if one's not calibrated and one is, you can get different results that way too. So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of things that you need to consider when doing that. I'm going to let them talk and just keep going, Paul. Keep spitting out the comments. Everybody, this is great. But I'll get back to you, Jess, okay? All right. Now that we've got a discussion going here about the detectors, I'm excited because now we're starting to think about what we're doing. We're getting interaction from different people that are be using the devices. What do you think? What is your favorite EMF detector? What do you think is the best one to use? Why or why not? Put those answer to those questions down in the comment. Now, do you think EMF detectors is a good tool to use? Okay, I want you to answer that question too. What I think is it can be, because we need all the data we can so we can get all the information about paranormal phenomena logged. But what we're trying to do in the paranormal field is try to find some standardization to the data acquisition that's going on. Okay, now if we watch 100 videos that do peer review on EMF detectors going off, since the process is not standardized, it's kind of like wading through chaos and madness and a lot of poor research to get to any answers. Okay, how many times have you seen a video of someone live streaming a K2 and watching it spike and saying, oh look, I got a ghost? That's bad. Okay, of course the phone live streaming is going to set off the K2, and a lot of times when you try to tell them that, they get pissed at you and close you off. So we can't do anything about that. We need to do better. Okay, we need to understand the tools that we were using. Okay, I stress that in a lot of the shows. Just understand, like Paul said, like I said before, you need to understand the sensor, the directional aspects of the sensor, its range, whether in distance and in the spectrum that it picks up. You got to understand how accurate it is, that you want to make sure to calibrate it. If you don't know, you got to find out how to calibrate it. The cheaper detector you use, the poorer results and data you'll get from it. So I know what Paul will say. The best thing to do is probably get a MagCheck 95 and hook it up to an O-scope or an oscilloscope so you can see the waveform. Okay, if you don't know what an oscilloscope is, let me pull this up for you guys, because this is probably the best way to do it if you can. All right, let's find a cool photo. This is an old school one. We'll do that. All right, guys. Oscilloscope. All right. It will give you a visual readout of the waveform of the field, the electrical current that you're detecting. Okay. So in this display, you will see the amplitude and the frequency and everything. So if you have like some type of device, either handheld or set up on your table, you can have like a MagCheck 95 that's running a cable straight into this O-scope here, and you can see the readout. Now, what you would do if you're doing really good research is you can jot down all the waveforms of everything in the environment that you are researching. Okay, you can see what your refrigerator gives off, see what your cell phone gives off, see what everything in your vicinity gives off. So you can have that for reference. If you get a hit and you see the waveform, you cross-check it with everything you know. All the detectable waveforms, what they look like, do they oscillate this way? Do they behave this way? That's all awesome, okay? If you can get a hold of that kind of stuff, you're doing really good, okay? So if you get a MagCheck 95 and an O-scope, you're going to be better than the ones using the K2, okay? Yes, it's expensive. Just a MagCheck 95, I think, is $150 last time I checked. And an O-scope can go from $200 up to thousands of dollars. So you don't want a cheap O-scope either. I know that if you want to do it handheld, you're going to want a portable one. So probably about $500 is a good amount to spend on an oscilloscope. So if you're going to do real EMF research, the best way you can, get an oscilloscope and a good sensor. Okay, but if you can't afford that, that's fine. Just make sure you know everything there is to know about the tool that you're using, and we should be good. And there should be some type of methodology, preferably the scientific method, when you use the EMF detectors to do the research. Okay, the stuff you see on TV with the old school Ghost Adventures and all the other stuff that got the blinky light things, that doesn't really mean a whole lot when it comes to paranormal research. What they need to do, log all the data, make sure that they peer review it, and they be very objective about what they're doing, and we'll be fine. Okay, there is no definitive proof that magnetic fields have anything to do with the paranormal. I've seen supporting evidence of it, but it is not irrefutable proof. Okay, so there may be varying degrees of paranormal phenomena that does correlate with magnetic field spikes and magnetic fields in general, but I do not know if magnetic fields encompasses all phenomena. I'm going to assume that it doesn't. Okay, but there may be some paranormal shenanigans happening that involve magnetic fields. Okay, there's all kinds of different things out there that happen, so it's very, very plausible that it does, but we need to do the research properly, and standardize it to some degree. So when we peer review this in a paranormal community that's strong and intelligent and educated, we can get to the bottom of things. Okay. Before I end the show, we'll go back to Jess. Any interesting comments or questions?
Sam wanted to know, which I think you answered, what is the best to use? Rachel Scott Long said, the Higginsport documentary public showing in Ripley, when the REM pod went off.
Who asked that?
Rachel Scott.
Oh, Rachel
Long?
Scott. Yeah, when it went off. I do not know what caused it to go off. It could have been not paranormal at all. I have no idea. It's completely unknown to me. It was interesting, but I don't know what it meant. I do remember that. I know.
Paul Browning.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if you were going to get to his.
About the phone coils?
Yes. He likes the old style. You remember if in the old style phones, you would go to Radio Shack and you'd pick up the pickups with the suction cup on it, and would allow you to record phone conversations by electromagnetic induction. All it has is a little coil inside, so when the speaker that has a coil that moves inside of it, so it's going to induce electrons through magnetic, the EMF. Okay, so if you have another little coil, it's going to pick it up. So you can use that for EVP research. Now, we had a conversation on the phone about digital dowsing and Billy Chappell coming out with his own little EVP mic. Well, that's all that is. So if you want to do that type of research, you just go to Radio Shack if they're still open in your area, or go to Amazon and pick up that little telephone coil that records the conversations on the old telephones. Okay? And you can do EVP research that way, or you can make your own coils. Okay, I know Paul has either done that or plans to do that too, but if you know somebody who can properly wind the coil, you can do the EMF research really well with those. Okay, so you don't necessarily need EMF detectors to do it. If you get all sciencey with it, there's all kinds of ways you can do it. But definitely don't waste your money on high overpriced TV show stuff when you can just buy it for $5 or $10. I see Paul Welch. That's the question, right?
Do I not see it?
Maybe not. The question is, has anyone noticed or tested to see if when EVPs are being captured, the EMF is also being detected in the area? Yes, Paul. Yes, not very much research by a lot of people. People like Paul Browning. When I discovered Paul Browning's RVPR setup, Mark III, what he does is, let's go to YouTube. We'll look up Paul's RVPR Mark III. RVPR Mark III. Here's the Mark II. Here's the Mark III. Okay, this is only 5 minutes, so this is going to be very informative, but I don't care if this show runs over a little bit. So here you go, Paul. I hope Paul Browning doesn't mind. This is a public YouTube video.
Hi, Paul Browning again. Another video featuring the RVPR. This is the mobile version, Mark II. However, this video, I'm going to show you how to make the RVPR Mark III. It's a little different than this one. You see we've got the two dynamic microphones. We got the two built-in condenser microphones. Of course, these are dynamic. What we plan to do is take one of these dynamic microphones and replace it. What we're going to replace it with is a MagCheck 95 EMF sensor that actually picks up EMF and covers the audio spectrum, which is where we're looking for those elusive EVPs. This device right here. And we're going to end up with an adapter that will connect it, or allow us to connect it, into one of these XLR cables. And it will record those EMF hits onto our Tascam recorder. This is the MagCheck 95 sensor that we're going to be using in place of a dynamic microphone. As you can see back here, there is a female BNC connector. Well, our XLR cable isn't going to work with that. So we're going to need this. This is a Nutric adapter that goes between XLR and BNC. Our XLR is male in, the BNC is female. Clearly, we're going to have a problem here because this isn't going to work. So, what are we going to do to fix that? That's where this comes in. This is a male-to-male BNC coupler. What that's going to do is allow us to connect both. Right in this clamp right here, just like that.
Fast forward this.
And there you have it, folks. Turn it around. This is the RVPR Mark III. This is a mobile RVPR Mark III. Now, when you've got this completely built, and no, it does not get any feedback anywhere, it doesn't cause any false positives or anything, even though this sensor is this close. I've never had any problem with it. So, you should be good to go. Now remember, you have an option here of either recording these two inputs and these two inputs, or if you're limited on space and you don't want to go through quite as much audio, you can set it to record just the third and fourth track, where you're recording just this, and that will only be in one file instead of two.
Alright, so basically, without watching the whole video, what you're doing is sensing magnetic fields with the MC95, and you're recording with the other mic, and you're recording it all into one recorder. And if something, if the magnetic field occurs during the EVP, then you can cross-check and correlate the two. And that's the best way I've ever found to ask yourself the question, does EMF have anything to do with electronic voice phenomena? Now, I've been using it for the last, I want to say, 4 years. The last 3 years very, very well. It is very, very, very rare. I think it happened twice in my research where I got a magnetic field spike exactly when the EVP occurred. So that is not enough data to say whether or not it has anything related to the two. Now, there's some things that are not perfect about this setup, because the emergent phenomena of the EMF spike may not happen over there at the mic, but it may happen at the MC95, okay? It may be a very minute, very small, emergent phenomena that happens only around the transducer of the mic. So if we can somehow make, a sensor inside the transducer of a microphone where it picks up the field and it records, audio, then that would be the perfect setup. But until then, we got the RVPR Mark III. So if you have any questions on it, hit Paul up, hit me up. Good luck getting Dave Roundtree to say anything to you. Anything else, Jessica, before we close this show out?
No, I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Not, you're seeing more than I am. Maybe I am to go through that. Well, Paul's. I didn't see his. I still searched for it and I didn't see his. Okay, yeah,
we're all caught up. We're all caught up.
Okay.
Thanks, Jess, for helping me again.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to drag it all out again, but you look great. Everything worked good, and I'm glad. I got to figure out how to get the chat to pop up on the screen like I like again. But until next time, we'll probably have Missy help out next week if she can, give you a break. And I'm going to let you go. You have a good night.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, there you have it. EMF detectors detect ghosts. We have no idea. Okay, so assuming so would be not right. It would not be true. But we need to do the proper research to see if it does. Okay, so if, all the interesting questions. Does it have anything to do with EVP? Does it have anything to do with anything? Let's just start doing the proper research, okay? Just throwing out a K2 meter and a digital recorder out there isn't quite good enough. So if you want to do the EVP research that way, you can go. I'll link this video in the comments of Paul's in the comments and let you watch that. He gives all the links and all the description on how to build the darn thing. Don't use a dynamic mic though. Use a shotgun mic. They're the best. Okay. Rode makes a $100 one that works good that I use. So just don't use a dynamic mic and you'll be fine. But that's all I got for you guys today, folks. Before we dip out, we're going to talk about Patreon and our Patreon pledgers real quick. If you would like to fund real scientific research in the paranormal, you can do so through Patreon. and you can help support all of our video production, all of our live streams, all of our educational content through Patreon if you would like. If you want to see us do more scientific research that requires funding, because we cannot afford to do all the stuff that we need to build to test all this stuff, $1 a month would be great. You know, we have 1,200 subscribers on YouTube. We have like nearly 9,000 likes and followers on Facebook. If every one of those people donated $1, guess what? We're doing really, really well. Okay. So if you trust us, if you believe in us, if you want to see us progress in this field and keep pumping out this content each and every week, each and every year, join us on Patreon. Go to the link in the description, which would be patreon.com/support interface death. The people you see on the screen already support us through Patreon. We have Matt Benton, Clay Borman, Matthew Jackson, and RJ Murphy still pledging. Okay, guys? This content would not be here for you guys to consume without them. So please consider going on our Patreon page and make sure and ensure that we continue to do this. And that would be really, really appreciated. So guys, there you have it. Episode 10's in the books. Thank you for joining me. I love the support I get. Thanks for engaging in the comments. Thanks for the feedback and the questions. You guys mean a lot to me. I love you guys. Stick around for some video promotions if you have not seen them. I will see you next week. I don't know what the topic will be, but it should be at 8 p.m. that time. I don't think my daughter will have softball practice. You guys have a good evening. If you have any further questions, you can message me on Facebook. You can email me at justinbrown@interfacedeath.net. Until then, you guys have a good one. Have a good night. And I bid you farewell. Sometimes there is a bit of truth in the legends we are told. We seek to uncover the mysteries that fuel the haunting. We call out to those who remain hidden in shadow.
Anybody here in spirit would like to communicate? We're trying to figure out if there's someone here. Is that you?
Do legends tell us about the past? Are they meant to frighten us? Meant to take advantage of what we fear? Or do some hold some trace of truth? Passed down so we never forget. We question, we search, we discover. We discover portals to the past.
Shit just went off.
What?
Bell's going off.
Bell's going off. Capture it. Kill that. Kill that. Something's disturbing the electric field.
Was it you?
No, I wasn't near it.
I moved and it started going off.
Do that again.
Don't go near him.
Yeah, don't go near me. Whatever just did that, do it again. Shh, please.
Is there someone here? You can come up to us.
Did you guys whisper? No.
Mark. How long have you been associated with the school?
We got the school in March of 2017, so